The Verstappen-Russell ramming incident. A lot of people are criticizing Max Verstappen, but not enough people are talking about how Red Bull screwed Verstappen from getting a podium, maybe even a P2 potentially, in the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix. So picture this, right? Think of yourself as Max Verstappen. You almost made the three-stop strategy work. You successfully stayed in the shadow of the McLaren, and imagine 10 laps to go and there's a safety car. You can close the gap now. This is the only real chance in which you can mount an attack on Lando and go for P2. What happens is Red Bull pulls him to the pits, fits hard tires. Why did you fit on hard tires, by the way? Now people are going to say he did not have any new tires left. Well, a used tire, a used medium tire would have been arguably better than a brand new hard one, because the hard tires take significantly longer to warm up, as we saw in the race, as we saw after the safety car restart. So first, he does all of the difficult work, stays close to the McLarens despite being on a three-stop, overdrives the hell out of that car while his teammate is struggling way outside of the points. I'm talking about Yuki Tsunoda. He does all of these difficult tasks only to be screwed in the pit stops by the Red Bull pit crew. Anyway, that happens. The restart happens. He gets overtaken by Charles Leclerc because Leclerc was on used soft tires, so he easily overtook Max Verstappen, especially after that oversteer in the start-finish straight. Then George Russell comes in. Picture this, right? You were Max Verstappen. You just got overtaken by Charles Leclerc because your tires are shit, because your pit crew is smoking weed or whatever. And then George Russell comes in. He fancies to overtake you. And then he pushes you, shoves you off of the track, and you have to take evasive action to prevent a collision from happening. That's exactly what has happened in the first turn after Leclerc overtook Verstappen. George Russell came in. He arrived out of control into turn one. He touched Max Verstappen. He pushed him off a little bit, literally, and Verstappen had to take evasive action in order to avoid getting into a collision, and he rejoined safely ahead of George Russell. Now imagine this again. Imagine you are Max Verstappen. Imagine you have just gone through the ordeal that you have gone through, and then your pussy-ass race engineer just calls up and he says that, hey, you need to give that position back. Even though we fucked you in the strategy, even though that guy just pushed you and you had to take evasive action to prevent a collision from happening, you still have to give the position back because that's what the fucking rules say. Imagine that. Imagine the rage. Now, obviously, I don't condone what Verstappen did next. I'm not saying that all of the drivers should adopt this type of practice. But you can understand his frustration to some degree when you put in the extremely difficult amount of hard work that he did. He is single-handedly dragging Red Bull Racing to P3 in the constructor standings. Probably going to become P4 if this type of situations continue. We will talk about that later. So this happened, right? And then obviously the George Russell incident happened around turn 5. He slowed down a little bit, allowed George to go ahead, accelerated deliberately again, and returned the shove back. In his mind, in Verstappen's mind, he is like, I have been pushed off of the track. I had to take evasive action. If I don't still stay ahead, then I'm going to do the same thing to you. I'm going to return the favor to you. I'm going to let you know that what you did a few corners ago, I haven't missed that shit. Obviously, the radio call from Jean-Pierre Lambiase to relinquish the track position after Russell hit Verstappen in the turn 1 was a stupid decision. The FIA actually investigated that after the race, and they decided that Verstappen rejoining the track ahead of Russell was not like a lasting advantage. So no investigation was necessary. So Verstappen was actually in the right. Now imagine all of this. Imagine all of these things happening and you are actually right. to not give up the track position to the guy who just pushed you off. But but your race engineer tells that you should because he's a pussy. Maybe momentarily he's a pussy. All of those things happen. Then Verstappen does the Verstappen thing. When things are going bad, Verstappen makes it worse. Because Max knows that when things are going bad, he's not going to win the race. When a season is going bad, he's not going to win the championship. Might as well have some fucking fun. And that's one of the things that I respect about Max Verstappen, that regardless of what happens, you can always expect box office entertainment. So, truly a people's champion. He got screwed over by Red Bull. And what he did in turn 5 to George Russell, I don't think that's a good thing to do. He will probably never do it again. And a lot of people, I think, are also overreacting to what Max has done because it's not that dangerous. People are talking about how he has put another driver's life in risk. People are talking about Nico Rosberg in particular. This guy who was commentating over the race for Sky Sports, it was very difficult to understand Nico, first of all, because he had Verstappen's cock in his mouth for the entirety of the race, except for the moment. Since the moment Verstappen-Russell incident happened, he completely flipped that shit around. And earlier he was like, Verstappen magic, Verstappen best, because Verstappen beat Hamilton in 2021. He's his arch nemesis. You know the story. He was, sucking Verstappen's cock throughout the race. And then when Verstappen does a Verstappen thing, because he was put in a difficult situation by his Red Bull team, he completely flips that shit and he is like, no, Verstappen shouldn't have done that. You have to, disqualify him. That's a black flag and all that. First of all, calm the fuck down. Russell is fine. His car is fine. He finished the race. Nobody died. Let's not pretend like Max was T-boning George into turn 5. That wasn't happening. It was just like he just let him know, kind of like a shove of the shoulder. He just let him know that, hey, what you did, I noticed it. In the books of the stewards, you're probably forgiven, but in the book of Verstappen, redemption is coming. That's basically all that it was. It was nothing big. Verstappen had no serious intention of causing a collision that would lead to a DNF on behalf of George Russell, maybe. But it was, people over-exaggerated to sensationalize the headlines. They're like, he jeopardized the life of another driver, which may be true if he T-boned into him, but that wasn't the case as far as I can remember. So anyway, Max Verstappen, people's champion, entertained us throughout the race. The only guy who has made this race interesting, except for Nico Hülkenberg and Fernando Alonso. And also, Max is the only guy who is making the championship fight interesting. So imagine you are doing all of that. You have the pressure to entertain the fans. You have the pressure to drag Red Bull from the midfield to the front of the field. You have the pressure to make a 3-stop strategy work to the amazingly fast McLarens and still pose a threat to them, still be in their mirrors, still be in their heads. And then you get fucked over by your own pit crew. It's always your own who betray you, by the way. So anyway, people need to calm the fuck down. Obviously, what Max did is not a good thing. He doesn't need to do that. But good for the entertainment, good for TV. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.